Happy weekend, IT pros and tech savvy people. It's your girl Riri with a weekend cyber news scoop. What do we have today? Biden, China, Russia, and the upcoming elections. Couple of sources that I have looked at, two in particular, talked about the situation and have reported that senior Biden administration officials are monitoring several threats to the nation's election security infrastructure in the run up to the midterm elections and will issue warnings, including internal intelligence briefings in the next coming week. So I'm going to keep my eye out for that and report those as they be made available. Cyber risk that are causing alert come from China and Russia, as well as those from non state actors and potential threats to election officials in jurisdictions across the country. They'll be detailed in this bulletin next week. With the midterm elections quickly approaching, officials are sounding the alarm after receiving many allegations of harassment at polling places. Individuals want anonymity in order to discuss serious national security and election issues openly at polling places or at town halls. The Department of Justice also addressed multiple illicit influence operations and other suspected criminal activities by non state actors on Monday of last week. The director of the FBI, Christopher Wray, said at a press conference last week that foreign governments continue to represent a substantial threat to U.S. election proceedings, even though the charges were unconnected to the intelligence briefing that's going to come out in the next coming week. Ray has added and been quoted as saying, malicious foreign influence, it is not simply an election cycle issue, but it is a 365-day year concern. This includes influence from the Chinese government, Russian government, and other government officials. And even though, there is buzz, what we are going to hear in a couple of the clips that are coming up is that these are potential threats. They are not immediate or founded at this time. They are potential. Let's take a look at this clip from Senator Jim Levine with his thoughts on the issue. And again, these are ongoing threats, potential threats. Let's just take a moment to see what he has to say.
We have to be prepared. I expect that Russia, particularly, we have to be concerned as Putin becomes more and more desperate. Clearly, neither their offensive operations on the ground in Ukraine have not gone well, and they have not been as active or at least as successful as we thought they would be in carrying out cyber attacks, either in Ukraine or blowback that we had expected perhaps to see here in the United States. But again, we've been vigilant, we've been prepared, and we've been ready. And again, also CISA and their Shields Up program, working with private sector critical infrastructure, so that we're as prepared as we can be. Now, that being said, I'm not naive to think that Russia doesn't have strong cyber capabilities, and we could see more effective offensive cyber operations on their part going forward. We just have to be vigilant, be ready, and we will respond if and when need be. But I would, and also, by the way, not just Russia, but we also continue to be mindful of watching out for the proxies that Russia would deal with, and the ransomware attacks that could be carried out by not per se the Russian state, but their proxies, like our evil, for example.
Okay. Continuing on, the internal administration's concerns about the election threats according to one of the persons familiar with the situation, come after a call that was held between the federal government and local enforcement professionals regarding the elections. Participants in the call discussed the risk of violence in response to misleading information about the voting process. Officials have warned that election workers, particularly those at polling locations, may be subject to online and offline threats and harassment from extremists. I am going to preference that they say may be. If I can find articles where it is currently happening or reports of it currently happening, again, a lot of this up at this point seems to be potential and potential risk that are going to incur both physically and in cyber activity. John Cohen, the former counterterrorism chief at DHS, was quoted as saying, "We are hearing allegations of persons encircling ballot drop boxes. Some are even wearing tactical gear and taking it upon themselves to question people providing early voting ballots." Um, is local law enforcement ready to handle such issues in mass? They must be, according to DHS. They must be and they must get ready to be because it is a potential. The myth that the 2020 election was stolen is the driving force behind all of this and could be a repeat occurrence. And that really seems to be what is the issue here. And cybersecurity is just kind of another mechanism to this, another layer that could be added on. Responses to our inquiries to the FBI, responses to these inquiries have been sent to the FBI, Department of Homeland Security, and Department of Justice, who have not provided answers and who have not provided founded incidences but are being made aware, and that's why they're going to be providing the bulletin next week. Government officials in the United States have long worried about cyber threats to the country's election infrastructure. Threats to the midterm election have been tracked for months by CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, and the intelligence community. However, However, authorities have recently claimed that foreign enemies are not actively targeting the electoral process. And here's a clip from Executive Director Brandon Walls of CISA in an interview with Politico last month, pretty much co signing to that.
Head into winter, and I'll start with you, Brandon, and then potentially other panelists can take this. What are we expecting to see from Russia in terms of, cyber attacks, and what are we doing right now to get prepared for this intense level of attacks that may come against Ukraine or its the U.S. and other allies?
So I think since late last year, we have been working hard across the entire U.S. government to make sure that we are both preparing here at home for any blowback that we may receive, but a substantial amount of work helping to buttress and support Ukrainian efforts to protect themselves, especially in cyber, where there are teams that have gone to support them. There's technical assistance and training from across the various U.S. government agencies. There's intelligence sharing, and we're going to continue to do that. This conflict shows no signs of letting up. Russia is behaving in a way in both the physical and cyber realms that are incredibly destructive, and we need to be prepared for whatever they do next. And we don't know exactly where they may go in the future in terms of this conflict, and it's all about being prepared and being ready. I think we are lucky that we have an incredibly strong alliance across Western governments to both support Ukraine and ensure that there are consequences for Russia's outrageous behavior in this conflict.
And as far as CISA, they've been pretty silent on this issue. except for a quote by their director, Jen Esterly, on the 13th, who was quoted as saying, "At this time, we are not aware of any specific or credible threats that may compromise or disrupt the election infrastructure." Esterly also remarked that current danger environment is more complex than ever due to the prevalence of false information, intimidation of poll workers, and insider threats from rogue election managers. So this is all internal at this point. And cyber is, again, I'm once again just going to say that cyber is the alarm that's being sent out, but nothing founded at this point. Given the ease with which malicious actors could exploit or delay results or isolate voting machine glitches to spread lies about the security of the process. And the misinformation and disinformation appears to be the greatest threat in the upcoming elections during the week of November 1st through the 9th. With that, I'm just going to say use wisdom, be careful, and do your research for what your local government is providing and what your potential officials are looking to offer you in the next coming election. Keep that in mind and be wise when you go to make your vote, and please do make your vote. With that, I'm out, and until the next.